This is Kevin Pruitt with another episode of Rising Tide Startups, and my guest today is Brittany Dixon. Brittany, thank you for joining Rising Tide.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
We had a little pre-chat here before the interview, and folks, I don't think I've ever seen anybody's wall behind me that are behind her that organized. It's pretty amazing. So can you point those out? What the letters stand for?
Yeah, so B and Co stands for Brittany and Co, which is the name of my company. So I just figured I'd jazz it up a little bit.
There you go. Well, Brittany, tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually live in Columbus, Ohio. Well, outside of Columbus, Ohio. I live in London, Ohio, but it's not the cool London, so I don't tell people that. So I grew up in a small town here and kind of just stayed, but I really am looking to travel. So that's kind of why I've put my business online, which is awesome that you can do that. I'm a mom of twins. So I have twin girls that will be 6 next month, which is craziness to me.
You had to get organized.
Yeah, it actually was not really a luxury. It was a necessity for survival. So yeah. But I actually started off in the wedding and event planning space when I got into my career. I was in hospitality and customer service forever. And then I jumped into that because I thought I wanted to be a wedding planner. Come to find out, I loved all the planning and logistics and all the things that went into events, but not necessarily the wedding side of things. So I actually worked for a corporate restaurant doing similar things, but I kind of got out of the wedding space and did more corporate event planning, catering, that kind of thing. And I was there for about 4 years, and I was an out-of-the-box thinker, as most entrepreneurs are. And the corporate structure there did not like that. So I was actually let go from my job in July of 2016, which came to be a blessing in disguise. And I started my business actually as a professional organizing company. So I went into people's houses, mostly other mothers of twins, and helped them to organize their space and declutter and really just help them live stress-free as you can with twins' lives. And then I did that for about 6 months. And then I knew I needed to hire a business coach because I had no idea what I was doing running a business. So I dived into that, and she introduced me to this whole online business world. And I basically jumped in to do productivity and organizing coaching. And then it kind of shifted into what I'm doing now just through experience. And I realized that so many business owners started a business because they were passionate about something, but couldn't even get to that thing because of all the back end systems and processes and disorganization. So I really niched down and started doing systems consulting. So I have 3 DBAs under my LLC. I'm 3.5 years in, and it's shifted every single year. But I basically went from organizing events to organizing houses to organizing businesses. And now I'm in the space that I want to stay in.
So you said you had 3 DBAs. Are you still doing all 3 of those things?
Yeah.
Or you're kind of
I'm not.
business?
Nope. I'm stuck with Brittany and Co. It shifted every year. So I just did a DBA instead of restructuring the entire LLC. Because, financials, bank accounts, all that jazz. I didn't want to mess with that. So yeah, Brittany and Co. is here to stay. We're not shifting anymore. We found the right space.
So, but you're not doing home organization or
I'm not.
event planning?
No, I have some people that I refer out that sort of business to because I do still get some people that ask about that here locally. So I've kind of partnered with some other professional organizers here in the area. And then as far as event planning, I worked for a restaurant doing it, so I got pretty burnt out. So really just planning my kids' birthdays are the only events that I plan now.
And you know what? When they're 6 years old, it's got to be fabulous. It has to be something Disney related or.
Oh yeah, it's unicorns and rainbows this year, so it should be interesting.
So tell me this. I want to circle back just for a second because it's really interesting. The idea of you've heard of entrepreneur, but the idea of being an entrepreneur within a business is more like entrepreneurial. So it takes the right kind of company to allow their employees to kind of spread their wings and pursue things within the framework. And I think there are so many companies out there that really struggle with that. And you said the company you worked for had the same struggle with. What do you think was the major issue? Was that your ideas were not fitting within the ethos or the strategy, or
it was
big enough? What was the problem?
A little bit of both. Honestly, I think that it was very old school thinking, that this is the way we've done things forever and why change now.
Sure.
But the problem was their goals that they wanted did not align with the things that they had been doing. Basically, I had astronomical sales numbers to hit, and the way we were doing things, that it was never going to add up. So I started doing things that were outside the corporate box, right? And I think it also was old school management too. My direct sales manager was just like, oh, why are we going to rock the boat? Let's just keep doing it the way we're doing it. And I just explained to her, like, that's really the definition of insanity, right? Like, you want things to change, but you're just going to keep doing it the same. Like, that doesn't work. So yeah, it was a lot. It was the corporate structure, corporate politics, the old school thinking, and just, I guess, not thinking big enough that they could do other things. So yeah, it was a little bit of everything.
Well, I think that's going to be helpful because, as people are thinking about making the shift, and maybe they're experiencing some of the same frustrations right now with, the kind of the thinking outside the box within the framework of the box. So
yep.
Yeah, it's somewhat difficult, but now that you've kind of found your feet in the kind of the business organization and space, so you and I are just stepping on an elevator, we're going up 10 floors. Give me your business pitch and how you can help my company, and kind of tell me who's your real avatar, who's your ideal client.
Yeah, so my 30-second elevator speech is that I help visionary entrepreneurs really integrate and create better and more efficient operations so that they can actually scale their business without having to live in the day-to-day of their business. So a lot of that entails project management and making sure their systems are set up very efficiently for that. Same thing for team and client management, making sure they can manage all of those moving parts. And then automation. In this online space, really automating whatever you can to free up your time. So I really want to free up their time so that they're visionary, they can make that impact, and I can help create that ripple effect.
Ding, the elevator doors open. I step out on my floor. Then I turn around and I say, wait a minute. How do you know how to automate my business, or are the systems universe? I mean, the next question I'm going to ask you is, okay, you don't know anything about my particular business. How could you help me automate that?
Yeah, so all businesses have processes and systems. They're different from business to business, but there are a lot of core features. You have to have a CRM in place to manage your customer relationships. You have to have a client onboarding process to manage your clients when you're onboarding them. You have to have a project management system in place. So a lot of things are universal. Yes, there's a lot of customization to it, but the basic core principles behind what needs to happen and the different processes that need to be documented are pretty universal across the board. So I work with a lot of creative entrepreneurs. Those are the people that are the big visionaries and they have the big ideas, but they just don't want to deal with setting up the structure to make those things happen. And those are the people that tend to gravitate towards me because I do have a little bit of creativity as well. So I can understand their world, but I also bring them back into like, hey, we have to have this operations and this foundation and the infrastructure for those things to happen.
So that question I just threw at you was not on the list that I sent you before our chat here. So I knew that you were going to be able to answer it. I would not have set you up like that. So
awesome. Yeah.
So tell me this though. You mentioned that you like to work with creatives. Is there a reason, or I think you used the term visionary. So is there a reason that you are kind of aiming at that? Do they see things differently, or do they see the value of your services more freely? What's really the target there?
Yeah, so I think for me, and this is actually a big realization that I came to when I shifted into the systems space, was that I want to make a big impact, but I am a behind the scenes. I don't want to be Tony Robbins on stage talking to tens of thousands of people. I don't want to go on book tours and I don't want to be in that limelight, I guess. But I still want to make an impact. So I want to be there for those visionary people. So again, I can create that ripple effect and help them to free up their time so that they can go make a bigger impact. And not even all of those kinds of people. It's also those people that are helping with websites, right? So in order for them to serve their clients better, they have to have better backend systems. And then the people they're serving that have better websites, that are doing big things can then do their thing more efficiently. So I really think it is just creating that ripple effect. And those are the people that I just love working with, because we can make a big impact together while I still stay behind the scenes.
See, you dove a lot deeper. I was just thinking,
Yeah.
you know what? They're the ones that need the most help, because they're probably
that's probably the short answer to it. So yeah, we'll throw that in there too. But yeah, it's a little bit of both.
I mean, I love the way that you really framed that, because in such in a very positive way, and you kind of laid out the groundwork. You didn't throw anybody under the bus. You just said, this is exactly who, why the services are valuable.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that. So I have said time and time again, you can build an extremely successful business with messy back-end systems and infrastructure. But if you want to scale and go bigger and make a bigger impact, you have to have repeatable processes in place. It's just not, again, it's not a luxury, it's a necessity. It has to happen.
Absolutely. So tell us, you said, do I remember correctly, you kind of said that you have really refined within the last year, that you are focusing more on kind of the business processes side of things, and kind of leaving the household and the wedding planning, event planning out of the way. So tell me, what caused that shift, and how has it been, in the past year since you made that shift? Because we're really talking about different clientele every year. Every time you shifted, you've got a different market. So
yep.
How did you find
that
them?
was probably the biggest struggle during my 3.5 years of entrepreneurship, was the shifting. Just because it is a different clientele every time. It is different messaging. It's different branding. I mean, I've been through 3 brands now. So it is a lot of shifting, but I think that it was just a natural progression and evolution for me. Thinking back to all of my previous positions that I was in, when I was in restaurants and customer service, when I worked for the event planner, when I worked at the restaurant, I was always doing process improvement, whether it be in the restaurant when I was moving things to be in a place that would be more efficient, or a sales process inside of my marketing job at the restaurant. Like, looking back, it all makes sense now, because I was already doing that in all of those positions. So I think it was a natural progression, but it was not like just an easy ride. Like, every shift I made, there were like all kinds of things that had to change. And even still, like now growing my business, it's hard, because every level you get to, you have to add new processes, you have to add new team members, you have to bring on more people. And it's those shifts that, if you have the foundation in place, it'll make it easier to make those shifts, because they're going to happen regardless.
Let me ask you another crazy question. So sometimes people that provide a service, they're so busy providing that service for others that they sometimes fail to implement the same things in their own space. How do you balance that? I mean, I know that you're obviously a practitioner, because you couldn't teach this well unless you were a practitioner, but do you implement the same things in your own business, and you do that as well as you can help someone else do that? Kind of understand the base of the question.
Yeah. It's everybody that does what they do it well for clients, but there's missing pieces on their side of things. I will say that everything in my business is completely functioning. It works really well, but there are always going to be processes that need to be fixed and tweaked and changed and added onto. But I think the big thing for me is I have that process mindset that I know if I'm changing a process, or if I'm adding a process, that I need to just document it while I'm doing it. Whereas the creatives and the visionaries are like, oh, I'm just going to do the thing. And they don't document it.
Exactly.
And they don't create training videos. So then when they try to bring somebody on, it's really difficult to pass that on. So I have all kinds of things that need to be more efficient. But I think that because I have that mindset that I can go in and change it as things come up, I have a great infrastructure in place now, and it's just going to continually get better. So yeah, I actually had somebody ask me that question. I show a lot of behind the scenes and some of my checklists and things that I use and process documents. And they're like, well, doesn't that make you extremely vulnerable? And I was like, well, yeah, but if somebody points out like, hey, you can do that better, I'm going to take that suggestion.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Right. We can learn from just about anyone.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I love that answer. And I mean, there's a balance between the perfection in your systems, and the fact that, businesses just grow. They just grow and they change and they evolve over time. So, I mean, there will always be processes that you can do better, and it's not because there's a deficiency, It may just be because your business is changing and scaling and growing. And you're thinking,
or there's a new tool. There's a new tool that does something better, or there's some sort of automation that you can add in to take the manual piece out of it. Yeah, I mean, everything is always changing, evolving. So as long as you've got that mindset of documenting processes and adding things as things come up, then you should be good. Yeah.
Right. So tell me, in the last year, what's been kind of a real highlight that you can, look back in the last 12 months and think, wow, I went to bed that night thinking, wow, this is fun. I'm knocking the ball out of the proverbial park here. So
so I did like a yearly review at the end of the year while I was planning for 2019, and just the amount of connections and people that I got to meet and people that I worked with, a number of clients that I had. It's just, when you're in the thick of it, you don't realize how big of an impact you're making. But just looking at that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I talked to like thousands of people over the years and have talked to them about what I do and showed them how to improve their business. And that has been huge. With that obviously comes good income, right? Because my income has went up every single month. But I love the impact piece of it. And I do videos a lot on Facebook and all the things, but going to in-person events here in Columbus and someone saying, oh my gosh, I love your video. And I'm sitting there racking my brain like, wait, have we met? Do I know you? I don't, she's like, oh yeah, I saw your video and you did this thing and you talked about this and it changed my business. Like, that has been, I think, the biggest thing for me is the impact piece. But obviously with that comes the increase in income, which is great when you're growing a successful business and adding team members and all the things. But yeah, I just love that. The amount of people I had coffee with, like, is absolutely crazy. And people I got to connect with and businesses I learned about, it's just been amazing.
You need to carry like a little invoice printer with you. This when somebody says, "Hey, you have okay, well, I'm going to invoice you for that because that's."
Wait, how many hours worth of my?
That's right. How much did I improve your system? So yeah, that's like the in kind, have the invoice to kind of match that. So I love that answer because it is. I mean, there are obviously 1 or 2 days that you could point to. You say, "Wow, that was a 4-letter day." That or 4-digit. Yeah. Going wow, but
and then there's other days that you're like, whoa, what am I doing this for?
Exactly.
When everything comes crashing down and all the tech things happen and everything breaks, it's a crazy roller coaster.
You ought to try doing podcast interviews without internet. That's
fun. Yeah,
that's always it's always.
I'm actually looking at potentially starting a podcast this year, so I'm like learning from all the pros that have done it already. Like, what are the ins and outs? What are the things I need to look at?
There are a lot of people out there that know this space really well. I don't happen to be one of them, but there are a lot of them. But I will help you any way I can. So
that's awesome.
I'm going to take a little curve here because I want to tell you just a really quick story that happened this week because you mentioned you have twins. And you're from London. My son-in-law, my oldest child, is married. My son-in-law is actually from London, the big one. So he lives here in Virginia with us. Yesterday he was driving home from work and had an accident because it was raining and the car hit him from the rear and it was kind of chunky.
Oh no.
So I guess it was Wednesday. So Thursday morning he has a twin sister in London. She called and she said, "You're never going to believe what happened." She said, "I was driving home Wednesday in the rain and I had an accident and my neck and my I feel like I got whiplash."
You just gave me goosebumps. I've heard so many twin stories like that. That's crazy.
It is. And he looked at me, when he told me that, he said, kind of like, do, 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 do. That kind of,
oh my gosh.
There's a connection. And I said, hey, who am I to say?
I mean, my twins had their own little language too. And I have twin brothers and they had their own little language and like they would have a whole conversation and no one knew what they said, but they would go off and do stuff and they knew what they were talking about. Like, it's a crazy like twin bonding. I'll never get it because I'm not a twin, but I can see it kind of from the outside. So.
Right, we can live vicariously through them. That's exactly. Well, I want to take a little bit of a little turn here and kind of dive a little deeper into Brittany Dixon. And so tell me I know that you've probably watched a lot of videos and read blogs and followed people. Who is one person online that you look at and you go, other than Marie Kondo, that says, that person has inspired me, and tell me why.
Yeah. So I'm the Marie Kondo for business, by the way. I'm just going to throw that in
Right.
there.
Right.
So I mean, there's more than one person. I follow Jay Shetty for like really motivational, inspirational
Hmm.
stuff, and I love his story.
Hmm.
But I'm honestly gonna say like what has changed my life and business. I don't know if you've heard of Boss Mom before. But the CEO that runs that, she literally changed my entire business. When I got into the online space, I joined her Facebook group, and I joined her group program, and I joined her like higher level group program with accountability. And honestly, every time I worked with her, I kept moving forward in my business. And I love her story. She actually used to live in Columbus, Ohio, which I found out later, which was cool. I went to her retreat this past year. I went to the retreat the year before that. I got to speak on stage at her
Wow.
retreat. Like, she has just completely changed the way that I do business. And honestly, like, I wouldn't be in the same space without her. So yeah, I would say boss mom, and she's mom and does all the things and is kicking butt in the online space. So that's always cool too.
Well, that's the first time that her name's been mentioned on our podcast. So
Yeah, very cool.
shout out there. Is there
Yeah,
a
she's got a community of about 30,000 followers on
wow?
Facebook, her Facebook group. And then she has a podcast. She actually has the Boss Dad podcast, which is cool. And she's doing some pretty cool stuff. So
We'll certainly have that in the show notes. But tell me, is there a quote that inspires you daily? Is there anything you got taped up beside your computer there? Or?
yeah, I actually have this rock here on my desk that says this or something better. I've recently been doing a lot of like mindset shifts and mindset work, and I'm actually in part of a program that it's called Shift 365, and it's a mindset upgrade every single day. And I try to be really, really positive, because when I was growing up, I was not.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of stuff going on. So really shifting my mindset to being more positive, and saying that this, as it is now, or something better, is how it's always going to be.
Is there, if you could kind of get in your time machine and go back a year, go back 18 months, 2 years, however
Yeah.
far you want to go back, what is one line of advice that you wish you knew then that you know now that you would give yourself, you think our listeners may be able to, it might help them out as they're starting out?
Yeah. So when I got into the online space, as anyone in the online space knows, there's a lot going on with online marketing and sales funnels and opt-ins and Facebook ads and websites and all the things. And what I would say to myself 18 months ago is to pick one thing and focus and refine and refine and refine and refine again, instead of trying to do all the things. Honestly, if I would have done that 18 months ago, I would be a lot farther in my business now. I have since learned that, obviously.
Right.
I actually have a course that is on version 3.0, because I kept going with it and just refining it instead of starting something new. And each time it grew in income, it grew in the visibility it was getting. And if I would have just started something new, it probably would have taken a lot longer. So yeah, focus. Pick a thing that you want to do and just keep refining it, and stop trying to do a million things. You can't write a book and do a podcast and create a program and launch something and have all these things and do clients. Like, it's just not possible.
So I follow up, because you say such interesting stuff. I have to follow up with the questions here. I can't follow the, and I drive that way too, so I don't ever follow this. What would you pick? To name one social medium that you would pick, and one thing that you would have focused on if you could go back 18 months or so.
Yeah, so I would have focused more on LinkedIn because of my clientele,
Mm-hmm.
instead of Facebook. And doing one thing, I think I would have focused more on, I would say, probably just lead generation. We all want to do all of these things and start podcasts and make big impacts and do these things. But if you don't have cash flow coming into your business, you can't do all of those things. Once you have the cash flow coming in with clientele, then you can pay other people to help you implement those things. So I think if I would have just focused solely on LinkedIn and solely on finding one-on-one clients, I would have been farther than I am now too.
You know, I have interviewed people at virtually every stage of development of business.
Yeah.
And I think that that lesson that you just outlined, you've learned that pretty early in your pathway, relatively speaking. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that is going to benefit you immensely as you grow your business, as you expand and scale it. So I want
Yeah.
to commend you on that, because that's a hard lesson to learn for so many,
It
especially
is, yeah.
early
And I
in the
mean, it's
process.
still hard for me to say no to stuff and to say, oh, I want to do all these things. Wait, let's pull it back. So that's still hard for me because, like I said, I'm still the creative type, and I want to do a podcast, and I want to do a program, and I want to do all these things. But just knowing that there's so much that goes into just one thing, that when
Right.
you try to do all of them, it's not going to be possible. So
Right.
it's still hard for me, but just having that mindset and knowing that it's worked in the past, I think is also helpful. That I've refined something, and every time I refine it, it works better. But yeah, it's still, there's sometimes where I'm like, wait, let's pull it back. Let's throw it on the idea board instead of putting it into my plans.
Well, I think that there's part of that is just, it's like, I show up at Alcoholics Anonymous, and the first step is
Yeah.
realizing that, hi, I'm Kevin, I'm an alcoholic. But the idea that you realize that, that you realize, and
Yeah.
and there's a difference between doing things that are kind of contributing to that one thing. Like, are you doing a podcast
Yes.
to promote this? Are
Yes.
you doing are you starting a blog to promote your one thing, versus
Yep.
an array of disjointed things you're just kind of throwing
Yeah.
spaghetti on the wall and seeing what sticks. So
Yeah,
there's
yeah. So
a
for
big
me,
difference.
visibility this year was huge. Podcast, program, and one-on-one people. So like those are kind of the things the big things I wanted to do. And if things do not filter into those big things, then I have to make sure I'm saying no to them. Which again is really difficult because you want to do all of these cool things, but if it doesn't filter into that one focus, it's difficult.
Well, this is a perfect segue into our next segment, because I want you to take all of that business acumen you've acquired in the last few years. So now we've got the whole elevator full of people, and we've turned the key so the elevator can't move. And we're going to do a micro class here on your service that you
Yay.
provide. So you have the floor. This is your time to really kind of outline exactly. I mean, just really teach our listeners the whatever thing you want to teach them. And here's the 3-step.
Yeah.
You fill in the blanks, but take it away, Brittany.
Very cool. Okay, so if anyone is in the online space, you've probably heard of Trello. It's a free project and task management tool, and it's really great for collaborations. It's really great for managing information, tasks, all the things. So what I found is that everyone has a million different apps and programs and information in a million different places, and content everywhere, projects everywhere, tasks, emails, all, like, everything. So what I tell my clients is that you need to create yourself an all-in-one hub. You need to have a space where you can manage everything, that also connects with the other tools that you're using. And for me, this was Trello. I found it probably about 2 years ago. And when I first started using it, I probably wasn't using it most efficiently because I was still learning it, but I really had put my own system inside of it. And now inside of Trello, I can manage my weekly plan. So I can see my entire week laid out. I can see any projects that are coming up in the next 30 days. That also includes personal stuff because I'm also a mom of twins that has to keep up with the household and all the things to do. I also have a business management board where I manage all the nuts and bolts of my business, my headshot, my bio, my team members, all of my processes. That's all housed inside of Trello. I house all of my content inside of there. So I have a content workflow. I share it with the 2 team members that work on content. We can collaborate inside of it. We can save content to reuse it. So I'm not constantly creating new content, and collaborate inside of there. I also manage all of their projects that they're doing. I manage podcast pitching. So I have my VA pitching podcasts for me, and that's managed in Trello. I'm trying to visually think through my boards here. But yeah, everything is housed inside of Trello, which allows me to go to one space at one time and really see everything in a big picture. So one thing I saw in the online space, and this is actually my free offer that I have, is the content marketing side of things is crazy. There's so many moving parts to it. You've got blogs and Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and emails and podcasts and YouTube. Like, there's so many moving parts. So what I wanted to do for people was show them that they could create a Trello board with a workflow of what their content looked like and what workflow their content went through. But they could also save that content on that same board so that they were able to reuse it and reschedule it and repurpose it. So what I did was created this board, and basically you would take whatever your workflow looks like. So most of the time this is my idea list that's like 1,000,000 pages long, right? Because we all have amazing ideas. And then to do that next step, you need to actually create the thing and edit it to make sure that it looks good. Step number 3 would probably be to add your graphics, because most of the time we need some sort of visual aspect inside of it. So that would be step 3 inside of your workflow. Step 4 would probably be ready to schedule, and maybe it needs dates added to it. Maybe you need to decide what your monthly theme is, what that kind of looks like, but that content piece is ready to go. Step number 5 would probably be that it now is ready to be scheduled on whatever platform that you're looking at. I actually have labels inside of the system that shows you all the different social media sites so that you can actually use one piece of content in multiple areas. But you would move it over to step number 5 and it's ready to schedule. For me, I actually have a VA that does that. So once it gets moved there, she gets tagged and she can go put it in. And then the last step is that it's been scheduled, but now it needs filed away in its appropriate digital filing cabinet inside of Trello. So really just creating that workflow, whatever that looks like, and creating a content bank all in one spot so that you're able to then just quickly move things over and schedule content out so that you can stay visible, top of mind, and all of that good stuff. So for me, that's Trello. There's a million other tools out there that you can do it with. I've just found that Trello does it the best. And really just creating that all-in-one business management, team management, client management, content management hub so that you're able to manage your business more efficiently.
So if I had to kind of refine this in a real quick snapshot on a Post-it note here. So it looks like the three major steps are: number 1, you've got to kind of gather everything together. So you have to kind of identify what needs to go into Trello. Then you kind of create this workflow, and then you know, for future use, you kind of file it away into a content bank. So would that be kind of the 3, you know, if you had 3 bullet points?
I think so. I would say creating an all-in-one hub to manage all the moving parts of your business is definitely there. Creating those workflows for the different areas in your business, and then making sure that you're saving that stuff so that it's a repeatable process that you can use again, whether that be a piece of content or an actual process, saving it somewhere so that it can be used more than once. Sure. I like those bullet points.
That is great. I mean, you covered so much in a very short period of time. So how can people find you, and what's the best way to get this information?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is brittanyandco-consulting.com. I am on Facebook and Instagram as brittanyandco.consulting. You couldn't do that in the website. Try to get them all the same. And then to find that actual content planner that's already set up and ready to go for you, it's a bit.ly link, and it's just bit.ly/BCO. I can never point to those the right way. So BCO and then dash content planner. And I actually have the entire system I just talked about laid out for you and ready to go, and you just drag and drop your content in. So yeah, I'm all over the internet. I'm on LinkedIn and all the things too, but those are the main places.
Well, I want you to, after we're off the air here, I want you to email me those links if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll get those up, and this will be in a number of different spots. I'm using in different mediums as well, and I'm going to probably have to use it myself. So I'm going to send it. Make sure I send it to you, because I've got my podcast goes in different directions as well. So I mean, this was very.
I have a podcast management board in my templates in my course. If you're interested, I'm just saying.
Appreciate that offer. Brittany, is there anything that we haven't touched on today that you would like to just kind of wrap up with and just leave our listeners with kind of one final thought?
Yeah, I would say that if you are serious about your business and this is a long-term thing and not a hobby, you have to have processes in place. And if you don't, it's like building a city on quicksand.
Mm.
That's the analogy I like to use, because you can build an entire thing up, but if you don't have that back end structure and repeatable processes and organization in place, it's just going to come crumbling down at some point. It may be 5 years from now. It may be 2 years from now. It may be tomorrow. But if you don't have that infrastructure in place, you're basically building a city on quicksand. So although systems are not the next sexy marketing tactic or whatever that might be, they are crucial to grow your business and to run your business. So start small, pick something, document it, and just keep streamlining.
Well, see, there you went. You did it again. So you said something so interesting. I got to have a follow-up question. And you know what? This is my podcast, so I can keep asking the questions.
So you can do it.
That's what I can do it. Yeah, I can edit stuff out later if I need to. But so I'm curious, when you talk to people, when you talk to potential clients, what would you say is like the percentage of people you talk to that just get it? You know, like, is it 1 out of 2 really understand why, you know, how I can help?
Yeah. And it kind of depends on if I'm in my ideal client space or if I'm talking to people that are maybe a couple steps down from that. The people in my ideal client space, I would say it's probably 1 out of every 2. Mm-hmm. And even the one that doesn't get it, it doesn't take as much explaining, because you're like, hey, tell me what your systems are currently, and I can tell you if there are holes in that. A lot of times the business owner is just in the day-to-day so much that they need somebody to come bird's eye view and see where there are maybe some deficiencies. And again, you can build an extremely successful business with messy systems. Right. But if somebody can come in and show you just a few things to tweak here and there, it really makes a huge difference. So in my ideal client space, I would say it's probably 1 out of every 2. And the second one, I can get there pretty quickly. But if I'm talking to somebody that's maybe a couple steps down and not ready yet, it does take a lot more explaining as to what kind of value that could provide them, just because they're still in the like startup phase and like, I'm not ready for that, I'm not there, that kind of thing. But yeah, I would say that. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. And so I've got another follow-up here. So the idea, how do you price something that, I mean, it's hard. It's not like, okay, I'm charging $50 per lead that I generate, or, I mean, this is really kind of I hate to use the word tertiary, but almost a kind of a necessary system improvement thing that is really hard to quantify. It's really hard to say, you know, hey, this is going to save you 25% a year, or that type of thing. So how do you price?
Yeah, so it is kind of hard to quantify that, and I'm still working on a system to kind of better ask questions before and ask questions after that I can convert to numbers.
Sure.
So like, hey, I don't have a good CRM in place, now I do, and I've been able to sell X dollars more in revenue, kind of thing. So I'm still working on that, but it's really I just lost my train of thought. Sorry.
See, I keep throwing these questions at you. So.
I know you got me. You threw me off finally.
You were so amazing.
I had like a brain fart, like that completely just lost me. Ask me the question again. It'll come back. I promise.
So how do you price that? How do you determine the price, the value?
Yeah. So my pricing structure, I really have set up for DIY, and that's my Trello course and my templates that I've trained you in the video course, and you can go do it yourself. I have a strategy package where I can come in and be that bird's eye view where I'm looking at your business as a whole and the systems and softwares and things that you're using. And I can give you an entire plan A to Z to then have you implement. Or I can come in and look at the different areas that you need help in. And because I have so much experience in these different systems, I kind of already have a process in place for them, how long it takes, that kind of thing. So I can basically break it down that way. Actually, back to the city analogy, I have my 10 building block systems that are like the big overarching thing. And then inside of them, I've got multiple things that go with it. And that's kind of how I've been able to break that down. So I've got DIY, strategy, implementation, and then implementation changes a bit just based on their needs. Right.
Well, see how amazing you were at that answer. I just had to give you a little space to get organized as you
right.
So yeah. That's right. Well, Brittany, this has been a great chat we've had this afternoon, and I really appreciate you just taking the time to kind of expand the knowledge base of our listenership and just really speak about something that we haven't had anyone really that, specific in your space. And it's just been really great to hear, kind of your growth and how you've launched and all the services that you're providing. And we'll look forward to having, this information in the show notes and the micro course getting on YouTube and people connecting with, to you through that as well. But I just want to once again just thank you for coming on and just playing your part in helping all boats rise in a rising tide. Brittany, have a great day.
Thanks so much for having me. We'll see you later.